try that. Other people are recording too. So no, somebody else actually started the recording. We have multiple people recording. I'm cool with that. But this will be released with as a Sudowrite Muse exploration. Ryan's is already up and is amazing. You can watch it at 2 times speed and it's completely legible. So you can get through it in half an hour, and he hits major points throughout what we can do with Muse. It's very cool. Share my screen. Welcome to Muse. This doesn't need to be here. There we go. Okay. Welcome to Muse. Here we go. Muse. Just wanted to start us off with a picture of Muse in the frame. Come on. Sudowrite Muse. Welcome to Sudowrite Muse. My name is John Creson. Welcome to everyone who showed up. We have 200 plus people signed up for today's example. This is being recorded and you can go through it as fast as is legible to you. I don't mind. Also, if you need to drop off at any point, I'm cool with that too. Please take notes in the notes that I've saved, that I've shared already. This will be made available to other people so they can also take a look at what we've discovered as we are working with Muse. This is a workshop. I expect people to be working in the background if they can, and to try things out. And if you discover something that makes you excited, share it with us, either through the text or a chat, or raise your hand if you feel like you need to do that. And maybe if it's something that's a big rabbit hole, don't take us down it right away. Let's try to get through most of what I want to try to get through today. And most of what I want to try to get through today is just working with drafts, working with Muse in a very limited fashion with a very limited story Bible, just to see what it does play out. How does it play out? How can I work with this? And then we'll explore turning something that it's great, but like, what do I do with this, into something that is a more usable and a more at the length that you're trying to hit. And yeah, I think that's about it for what I want to say. I use Sudowrite a lot. I'm writing under a pseudonym, Write to Market Romance, and I enjoy using Sudowrite. I enjoy sharing. So Sudowrite is the first AI model made for fiction, just for storytellers like us. And one of the things that I wanted to show you that's special about the draft mode is that we have both the slider here for creativity that not only does it go to 10, but it goes to 11. And 11 is a completely different mode. Sometimes if you see that, you just got to click it again if you want to bring it back. Usually you have to hit the use Muse or whichever model you are working in. But this number 11, maybe too creative, is essentially the first version of Muse that we had. And then all of the other ones, or everything between 1 and 10, is about using Muse in a very much more controllable way. And so I'm going to suggest that we start with the uncontrolled Muse, and then we say, okay, I get an idea, I get a place to go with it, and then I'm going to use the controlled Muse to work forward, trying to keep that same voice, trying to keep that same idea of the story but expanded and more, more of a novel. Another thing I want to point out in here, though, with the Muse is that we have style examples, and you also see a writing sample. These are two different things. The writing sample is sort of an example of the kind of prose that Muse likes to write. Okay, that's cool. Each one of the prose modes has an example. This mode has a style example, which is optional, and it is shared across all of your projects. So you have 1,000 words that you can put in here and try to keep it at 1,000 words. It might let you do too much, but don't do too much. Just give it 1,000 words. And in lieu of doing a style, you could put a style example of work that you've already made. So that you want it to sound more like you, do it with style examples. You want to use Muse and your style examples in auto write and guided write. That's fantastic. But you want to add these examples in, you have to do it through the draft. At this point, when you go at it from auto write, you don't see this style examples part. You see the writing sample, but you don't see the style examples section. So that's a good fun hint is put something in there that you like, that you've written, and it will sound more like something you write. It's also been suggested if you do this, that you may not wish to put anything in style at first. And I would second that. And then essentially what you do is you do a little bit of testing. This doesn't cost that much when you're working without a story Bible, when you're working without all the extra baggage of 60,000 words of novel behind you that it's trying to read through as well to do the next chapter. We're just starting at the very beginning, and it doesn't, and you can do some experimentation on this, even with a 10,000 tokens. But what putting words into the style example doesn't cost you, but every time you draft something, those words in the style example, those words in your story Bible, they add into the influx of words that you're sending to the LLM, and that does affect how much tokens, how many credits you're using. So just a good thing. You'll notice the credits usage is 3 $signs, and that's actually they've gotten it down now that they've released it to everybody. And I'm sure that as time goes on and they make things better, they will work to get those credit usages costs down. You notice it's fully unfiltered. You'll also notice that it doesn't have that instruction following final checkbox that some of them do have, but it's pretty damn good. And 11, again, I'm not expecting it to follow. I'm trying to be creative. So I'm thinking of two modes here. One is sort of like a brainstorming session, and one is sort of like no, I want you to keep writing what I'm writing, or keep writing the story that we're in, and don't, or the scene that I'm in, and don't go into a new section yet. Okay, so I'm gonna use Muse, and this is an ellipses. It's 3 dots. I don't have anything in extra instructions. I don't have anything in the story Bible at all. It's all completely empty. This is a brand new project 691. Yes, I have over 700 projects because I've been naming them. It's renumbered lower, but here we go. And I'm going to make sure I'm at 11. Yeah, okay. And then the first thing I do is click generate, and it doesn't generate because it's checking, which is something it didn't do before. And so it's telling me the scene content is missing, and I can quick fix it by providing a scene. And if I click that, it's going to do something in there. It'll just make up a scene. I want to make a scene up at this stage. So I'm going to say, ignore this stuff, just generate prose. Now that claims estimate word count is 700. I think it's going to hit 25, 2,400. It's been described that the general feel of like when you do something like this, that it's going to be sort of a literary style. And I kind of agree with that. It feels, Grapes of Wrathy or something. There's a tendency to have it be longer paragraphs and decent enough dialogue. We see that it's thinking. which is a nice thing for it to say. The other models will tell you when they start churning through words in the background. This model, when you're at 11, as soon as it has words that it can write, it will start writing them. And it is doing this something in the background, trying to figure out what it's going to do first. But then when it starts writing the words, it'll just spit them all out one after another. One of the ways that 1 through 10, that if you bring that level down below 11, um, what it's doing is it will write the entire chapter, and then it'll check back, or the entire scene, and it'll check itself to make sure it's good enough, that there's something that's working in it that is installed for some reason, and then it'll give you that chapter and then or scene, and then it'll move to the next scene. Bad. Come on. Nothing after all that thinking. I'll try this one more time. If it doesn't produce anything, I will say that they've decided to change it. While we're waiting for it to think, any questions, any suggestions, any observations of what you guys have been playing around with?
Is this a something that everyone has received from an email from previous class? Because I can't find the pros button.
Okay. If you need, the draft is here. And if you have the chapter generator, then you need to upgrade, and there'll be like a little uh, message here where you click to upgrade once you open the chapter generator. Can you find it? Whoa, this just didn't do
It's
what I thought
empty
it was
for
going to
me.
do.
It won't let me click.
Won't let you click here?
Yeah, I click draft, but my generate button isn't for pros, isn't purple
Ah,
like yours.
so you got to click inside of scenes and at least put 3 dots in there. Maybe we'll
Okay,
put a little
thanks.
bit more
I
info.
was I was distracted. You probably brought it up earlier. Yep, that did it. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcellus. Come on, dude, do my thing.
John, while that's going, could you briefly mention about how the different models give different word counts? That's coming up a lot in the chat.
Good questions. So right now, just about every one of the models will claim that they give you like 500 words per scene, and that's not really true. Some of them are doing that. I believe DeepSeek. This is doing the same thing. Okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore, guys. About this, I will do something else. Nothing in. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll see. When I One of the things that great for long scenes is excellent. So this is based on Claude 3.7 Sonnet. It is truly a wonderful model. Similar credits use. Um, it will write uh, easily 15, 200, 2,000, 3,000 words in a scene. So you can get quite a bit out of excellent if you're looking for that sort of length per scene, and you can feed it a lot more. Basic is good, and it's a lot of people work with it because it's just good enough. If you need a draft that works, basic might be something to try, especially if you can mess around with um, the style and genre until it is feeding you exactly what you want. You might be happier with it. But again, working with scenes, basic, I think, is going to claim 500. Muse has a tendency to claim 500 per scene, but Muse will do vastly different things. Muse can sometimes do. I think the most I got recently out of something like this would be like 3,000 words in a scene from Muse. Um, but that's usually the very first scene at 11. If you're using Muse at other levels, it's a little more controllable, or it always feels like it's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 per scene. And essentially, you kind of want to do 3 scenes if you want to get around a 1,500 word count for that chapter. Um, is that enough info about the different models? These guys down here and under experimental, see, there's a difference between excellent and the top of the experimental. This is a more raw version of the model. This one is really helping to make sure that what's coming out is successful, and it has a lot of these things have a lot of secret sauce in them to make them right. Not safe for work content, and DeepSeek R1 is very good at that as well. Um, Again, yeah, right now I've been seeing numbers in the 500 section. You'll see that premium is retired down here. Apparently, maybe that did get a fix recently, that people were having trouble getting it to right with scenes, but now it's showing up in scenes. Yeah, it's difficult because you can't really rely on the word count suggestions. You kind of just know how big your story is, and as you play around with it a little bit, you'll figure out, okay, if I give it this amount of work to do, then it's going to either give me exactly what I want, or it's going to do that plus a little bit more, or it's going to do a little bit less. It's a bit finicky, I think, is what I would call it. Okay, I'm going to use Muse. I'm going to keep it 11. I'm going to suggest that we look at a slightly different space here. I've gone in and said my genre is urbanity. I have a style that I will share with people. I'm not using the words in there. Um, Sorry about the flickering here. But that's mostly what I've got in here. Yeah, nothing's in my outline yet. I was just playing around with what happens when you add something else to the mix. So usually what I get out of this is something that's much more of a literary fiction thing. It might look like this, a market sounds and colors was something that I did as a dot, 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 like a 3 dots. Or was this unicorns? No, the first ones was the dots. This is not, okay. Sorry, I was playing around with this too much. So what I started out here, I started urbanity. I said, make a story about unicorns. And I said, let's share that. Actually, I shared a version of this with people. You can check it out if you want. Called it Miriam Spotted It First. But this one I just said make a story about unicorns, no extra instructions, and that's Muse at 11. Did that. And we'll try that again because it's kind of fun.
John, I hate
Eh,
to interrupt you, but some people are sidetracked and cannot focus on what you're doing. They still cannot find Muse. Can you please show the two spots for them to
Ah,
Muse?
okay. So the problem they're probably having, and this is good that we have a lot of people here, but I think the problem is they need to figure out how to turn it into Muse. And so I've got to find a gotta find a I'm going to create a new project. I'll show people how to turn on Muse because at this point, I guess you can use Muse in Beats. You just can't use it. You can't use it through the chapter generator. You got to use it through the auto write and guided write. So if you don't switch, if you don't upgrade to Beats, you're not going to see it in the chapter generator. You have to upgrade to from Beats to scenes, and then you can see it in the draft uh, window. Yeah, the only way to show that is to show you how to do the upgrade. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start that going, and then I'm going to flip back over here and start this with just uh, and Muse is at 11, not at 11 yet. Okay, make it 11 and generate. And while it's generating, I'll go see if that thing finished over here, which it didn't. Let me see if this thing works. There we go. Okay, I'll try to use that a little bit while I do this. If I'm in, oh, it's still writing. This is, yes, just write the darn thing. There it goes. Okay, see, this is what Muse at 11 doesn't think. It just writes. And I guess what I was trying to show people before was that um, with the style I'm giving you, I'm getting a faster read. There's a lot more white space on the page. Whereas the original style that it works with, if I was able to show that to you, would be larger chunks of sort of literary text coming through. And what I'm doing here with just the genre and a style is a form of brainstorming. I don't know what the story is going to be at all. I will play around with it and I'll see what it does. Um, and if I like it, I'll continue it. If I don't like it, I'll just drop it or I'll mix it into something else. I'll bring it in and work it together with other things. Um, but and it's kind of weird because it feels like you're letting the computer write for you, and I'm not. I'm playing with it. I'm seeing what happens when I do this, when I prod it like this, and when I do this to it. And every now and then something comes out that just makes me very happy, and I just want to keep doing it. Here we are at 2,800 words, and it's not even very far through its thinking. There, we're done. 3,000 words. Now, what do you do with those 3,000 words? How does it end? He didn't care. He'd beaten them all. He felt like a goddamn unicorn. That's a pretty good ending. Where does it start? Here's a trick. If you click on Awakening to Echoes, you click on the name over here, it'll drag you up to the top. Then you can look back at the top. So unpack that. Okay, so the stuff at the top is actually instructions. So you might want to get rid of them. You may want to get rid of this, but yeah, Paul woke up to the rhythmic drip of water, or at least what sounded like water. It echoed in his head, resonating like a tuning fork. He opened his eyes to the unsightly and inconvenient view of a sewer pipe, rusted and leaking, which stretched out in both directions, and had apparently replaced his apartment as the new address of his residence. His mouth was parched, a grim testament to a hangover that seemed to belong to a younger, stupider man. Hey, you're alive, a voice croaked, each word sliding out as if on a bit of gravel. Thought you might have kicked it this time. Paul sat up, which was an heroic endeavor, and took in his surroundings. He wasn't alone. An elderly man with a wiry beard and attire best described as urban druid stared at him, chewing on what looked suspiciously like the remains of a hot dog. Okay, so this is the feel I'm looking for. And the end, it felt like it ended. I use a plugin that is called eval, full story eval. So if you look up full story, as in 2 words on the plugins page, you can find these different evaluations that I created. The one in V3 is very cheap and it's very unforgiving. The Haiku I don't trust all the time. It seems to be very happy all the time, but this one is hit or miss. It'll look at the genre as well, really well. They all do, but the one from 3.5 or version 3 there, I see it says it's not ready. I have to play around with that, see if I think it's not ready or not. Sometimes I disagree with these guys. Okay. What's that? We're here. There's that. This thing is still trying to generate its thing. Let's see if I can show you where we are, how I got to Muse from where I'm at. So once I've upgraded my project, you can find Muse under that button up top. So there's this draft. It looks like a typewriter. If you open it up, if it doesn't say draft, if it says chapter generator, then you're in the old version, and there'll be some words up here that talk about you can upgrade it, and then you hit upgrade. When you upgrade, you are only upgrading that project. So all the documents in the project will be upgraded, and you're only updating that project. I would not do this right now on a full heavy project I'm in the middle of trying to get done. I would do it on a brand new project, update that project, and then you can have access to the scenes. Before that, we had beats. And the extra instructions are not available in the beats section. You can have 2,000 words in extra instructions. You can have a lot more than 2,000 words in scenes. I think we were suggesting that it's close to 100,000 words in scenes availability if you really wanted to push it. You can go nuts with scenes. The other way to think about draft and the scenes is that this is an automation. It's a bit agentic, but not really, but it is about automation. So if you can figure out how to structure your scenes so that you have them all in here for an entire book, you can generate the entire book in one go and you can see how it goes. But you do that before you're comfortable with it, you're going to end up with a lot of garbage. So don't do that right away. And also, if you don't really know your story that you want to write perfect, like when you get in here, be incremental. Do one chapter, do the first chapter, but you don't even have to write you could write the 10th chapter. It's okay. You can figure out a way to make this work. Yeah, so the way to get Muse is this generate button. There's a little down arrow here. If you don't have any number 1 in here, it's not going to let you open that up, right? So if I'm in here, if I 1, 2, 3, 4, so these are all different scenes. And it runs this one, then it runs this one, then it runs this one, then it runs this one. If I copy and paste some words in here, they all go into that one scene. If I want to break up the words somehow, one way to do it is to put them in different uh, formats. So if I take it from there to say there, copy, paste, then it pastes those different formats into their own scenes. That's something I learned the other day that I like, even though it's annoying because I don't want to do that to my stuff. But that allows you to copy and paste something in if you give it different heading. Anything within the same A or the regular text or header 1, header 2, header 3 will be sort of consolidated into a particular scene when you paste it into this scenes section. But to get to Muse, you have to have something in scenes, and then you've got to click on this little down arrow, and that pops this window open. And Muse is at the top left. If you want to look at the other models, excellent, it is very nice, and it will write very long chapters for you. And it's a great way to write, acts or books of things, depending on how big your scenes are. Some people are annoyed at how long it goes. Again, I like the sort of the look of the white space that I'm showing you in my style. So I like that. And if I get that, I'm not going to be upset if it writes chapters that are quite long. I can chop the chapters up, or I can do something else with them. But that's excellent for you. Muse, what we're talking about today, is here. The style examples box is here. Ryan showed a wonderful thing where he was putting in bits of Ulysses in here, and it got it to write sort of like a Ulysses. So there's a lot of opportunity there that I'm not going to explore because I haven't really messed around with the style examples in Muse. I've done a lot more just sort of brainstorming with Muse and trying to unpack what it does. How are we doing on questions at this time? So I'm making a new project, and somebody interrupt or say something to me about do I need to answer something else in chat? And this is draft. Why should my new project be draft? That's a different project. That's why. New project.
Can you show in prose mode, in the prose mode window, when you choose Muse, can you show where to get the sample window?
Yeah. So I'm in prose mode. I click on that little down arrow. And then if you scroll this down a little bit, you'll see that there is your slider for creativity. And then there's style examples here. And that's where you put the words. So you put your words in this box. Or it says 0 of 1,000. This is where you put your style example in. And if you don't like using draft, you want to use auto write or guided write, this is where you put in your style example to share across your entire project. So if you have different style examples, you might want to have a project that's nothing but all your different style examples, so that you have a place to go to get them to swap them out. for writing in different ways. Is that clear to folks? The stuff underneath it, it says writing sample. So there's writing example, style examples, which is optional, and there's writing sample. You can't edit the writing sample. That just shows you what I was trying to show you at the beginning, where you put 3 dots and you get it to render, and it doesn't do anything for us. You see that it does this sort of larger chunks of text with some pretty decent back and forth breakup of the dialogue. So it's a combination. It's default mode, but your style example is here. So when you click on it, it'll go purple, and then you can start typing. Okay. Well, this confuses me because that was a new project and I'm still in draft, so I can't show how to change it. I'm just saying that if it says chapter generator up here, you can't use Muse yet in chapter generator. You have to upgrade to draft, to scenes, so you can use that. And there'll be some words in here somewhere, little purple words. They're similar to this, where this is where it says generate scenes. Another thing to think about is that if you're going to outline something, if you create an outline of if you create a chapter, that's my chapter. Kind of an ugly chapter, but fine, it's a chapter. Right now, you notice up top here, it says not in outline. So right now, my untitled is not linked to anything in my outline. But if I click on this, it says the document is not linked in your outline. Sudowrite will not refer to this part of your outline when generating text. So if I update that, I can now choose chapter 1. So now I'm linked to chapter 1. What does that give me? It gives me this button down here that says generate scenes. So if I click that, so I'm clicking the generate scenes, it says it's generating scenes. That's all I know. There's nothing moving on the screen. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything, but you kind of have to let it do its thing and see what it does. But it does switch from generate scenes to generating scenes. And I'm just also pointing out that the invocation at the top that says, upgrade to scenes or to the draft looks very similar to that. Okay, so now I got 3 little scenes. The scene opens in a dense fog, shrouded forest, clearing with a rough stone altar, centered among low twisted trees. A lone figure in torn black coat steps into the clearing, raising a hand as he unfurls a worn parchment and uses a bone comb to trace precise symbols on the damp earth. Now, if I do this in 11, it's going to do all of these scenes at once. But if I do it in even 10 is very creative. The other thing about the creativity level is it tends to write longer a little bit. And the other thing with the creativity level is that it tends to be a little more wild. So that's great if you don't have any info in that story Bible. It's not great if you want it to stick to your directions more. So if you want to stick to your actions more, you might want to bring it down to 3. But the 7 that they recommend is actually pretty good. I'm going to leave it at 10 because, again, these are not all that precious to me. And then when you click it, it's going to tell you whether it likes these or not. It's claiming that I'll get 2,100 words and that it's rich detail. And so I can just tell it to generate prose. I don't have anything in style and genre at the moment. I think that's important and kind of difficult because I like doing things with style and genre. in there. But this will give you an idea about what happens with just this kind of a level of scenes. And it does seem to have gone to some kind of fantasy. And you'll notice right away that the it's writing a little bit longer chunks. And I'll share that with folks. And you'll also notice that it's 722 words for the first scene, and now it's 1401 for the first two scenes. So it's writing about 700 words per scene when it looks like this as the scenes. And it's finished. Okay, so we now have 3 scenes in here, all pretty even kind of spacing to me. That looks, I'm okay with it for what it is, but again, it's not the style I like. I like it to be more like this one, where it's little chunks of a lot and then a lot of back and forth. Then a little bit of information about what's going on, and then a lot of back and forth about characters responding to each other. But this is how it writes regularly, I'd say. But I will say that it is picking up on the fantasy element. So if you want a different genre, put in a different genre. Also, go for subgenre. Go for something that is not just romance or just fantasy. Go for urbanity, or go for dark romance, or romance. Don't call it romance. Maybe call it romantasy. Do things to it to make it more unique, and it will help find more what you're trying to go for. Genre, again, you can also add in words for things you're looking for. So if you want filthy language, if you want dirty words, if you want very specific technical information, you can ask for it in the genre. Is a good place to go. Now, the one other thing I wanted to show you guys was what we can do with expand, and I got it fixed today, so I'm like so happy that we got expand working again. Fantasy, no. So one of the things that people complain about is that you'll write something in with AI and it will just jump over the thing that you wanted it to write about. This happens a lot with sexual situations. It happens a lot with somebody turning into a werewolf. Now, one of the things we now have that is also Muse superpowered is expand. Expand is different than what it was before. But I'm just taking this little bit of information. It's looking at my genre. It's looking at my style. If I had a linked chapter, it would be looking at that. If I have character information, well, there's Bobby. If Bobby was in my character cards, it would find Bobby. If werewolf was in my world building cards, if there was like a werewolf society, or there was a werewolf species, say, that had a very clear description, then it would be looking at that. But right now it's just looking at what I've got here and the urbanity and the style box, and I tell it to expand. And you'll get a little card up top right in our card history, and it makes a much longer chunk. Though it was something he'd never imagined would happen to him. Bobby underwent a most horrifying transformation, changing before his own eyes. That's a weird statement. Into an overwhelming beast of fur and claws, a werewolf. The word echoed absurdly in his mind. His skin itched and burned and stretched until he thought he might tear apart. His limbs pulled and popped, shifting grotesquely beneath the skin like writhing snakes. This isn't real. This isn't real. He tried to chant the words in his mind, but they were lost beneath the animal howls he couldn't even recognize as his own voice. His clothes ripped from him in tatters that fluttered to the ground, and the pain in his bones was electric. His jaw hurt like 1,000 dentists had swollen his gums. It's not real. The world trembled and shimmered around him. The stink of fur and sweat filled his nose. A howl tore from his throat, almost choking him with its raw power. Bobby whimpered. Now, I love it. I think that's a lot of fun. I want to make it. I want to go more. I want to get rid of the stuff at the top, and I want to start here with Bobby's skin itch and burned. And I'm going to put some space in here so it doesn't look so. They were lost of howls. He didn't recognize his own voice. Put that in a chunk. His jaw hurt. It's not real is another chunk. The world trembled. The stink could be its own thing. A howl tore, almost choking from it, and then Bobby whimpered is the last chunk. So this is how I would break that up. But now that I've broken it up, what can I do with that? Well, one of the things I could do is I could take the beginning of this and pull it apart. Let's see what happens when I grab expand and do that to it. Bobby felt his skin itch and burn and stretch in a way that made him sure he would tear apart. It was like 1,000 needles stabbing him from the inside, each one bent on making his life miserable, each one making him wish he'd never been born. The sensation built like a crescendo of agony, and he gasped, wondering if the torment might actually kill him. His skin crawled with the revolting changes as if ants were marching underneath the surface, gnawing at his nerves. Then his limbs pulled in a dozen directions at once, popping and cracking obscenely under the pressure of whatever was trying to happen to him. He wanted to scream, he wanted to die. Instead, they shifted grotesquely beneath the skin like writhing snakes. Okay, so you see what it did? So it took that chunk at the beginning that I selected, and it blew it up like a balloon. And then it took the part right after the part that I selected, and it wrote into that. So it says instead they shifted grotesquely. So it changed a little bit. It said shifting grotesquely. And this one says shifted grotesquely beneath the skin like breathing snakes. This one says shifting grotesquely beneath the skin like breathing snakes. But essentially, it looked at what was coming after the part I selected to expand, and it blew it up. And then you can copy that out and then stick it in here. See if there's something in here that I want, like his skin crawl looks like a. So you could even blow this up a little bit more. So what expand does is it reads the story Bible, which is fantastic, but it looks above and it looks right below, and it writes into this in between. It blows it up like a little balloon. Okay, so that got more gruesome. Pain, a dozen directions, they're popping. He wanted to scream, wanted to die, wanted to make everything stop. He didn't care how it happened. Tendons strained, muscles stretched, morbid elasticity he never knew he had. Instead, breathing snakes. Sorry. Okay, so I popped this in, and I don't need this anymore. This isn't real. This isn't real. He tried to chant the words in his mind, but they were lost beneath the animal howls. He couldn't even recognize his own voice. We'll do that one and expand it. See if we get some description of his clothes ripping. This is a fantastic way to both expand what you're writing on. Now he's naked. Yay. Okay, so 200 words out of 12. Pain his bones was electric. Well, actually, it's 200 words out of 20. So let me share that if people want to. Now, this stuff, if as I'm working on it, and if I add more to it, you can take a look, refresh your screen, and take a look more at it if you wanted to. I think you can copy and paste this stuff. Not too sure. Tom says he's found the longer text that you want, the less beneficial it is. So that if you try to expand an entire chapter, it might go nuts. But it's sort of amazing for what I'm using it for, which again works really well with not safe for work content that the AI has kind of jumped over. It does it all in one paragraph, say, and you want to go in and you want to make every single step, you can do it, and you blow it up, and when you're blowing it up, you blow up that little bit, you blow up that little bit, and it really allows you to sort of shape the story or the scene that you're trying to explore, where normally the AI would kind of ignore that part or try to figure out how to not talk about it. So unless you can describe exactly what you want in your scene, you need another way. And a lot of times the AI does things just silly. It's like it's not physically impossible. It's not. It doesn't work in the story the way that it happens on the page, and so you have to get rid of that and go for something a little more detailed. And this is one way to get at it. Sagging sleeves could be another chunk. Scattered like visible. There was nothing left to cover him. Bare feet on a carpet of rags, his body tearing through everything he knew, leaving him exposed, bare, and helpless. He felt like a freak, a monster, a nightmare made real. Worse than the nakedness was the pain in his bones was electric. His jaw hurt like 1,000 dentists had swollen his gums. Sadistic dentists had taken up residence, were drilling and pulling and chiseling at once, delighting in his misery. It was throbbing, pulsating pain that made everything else feel like a warm-up act. So part of the trick here is to figure out where you want to backstop it. And if there's like something that's going to happen, that's going to, like, the story's over once that happens, that's the backstop. You want to blow up everything before the story's over because you want it to last as long as possible, and you want to make things kind of work for you. The world trembled and shimmered around him. We could do that. I like the stink. So the howl, and then he whimpered. Okay, filled his nose. That's a weird way to do it. I got the stink of fur. His form was a wild blur. Let's do it like this and see what it gives us differently. It'll use Howl tore from his throat as the backstop there. We're about 2 minutes to the top of the hour. If people have to drop off, I'm totally cool with that. It is being recorded, so if something happens and you want to come back and look at the last half hour, that's good too. We may stick around for a little bit longer. If there's any questions or anything else that we want to play around with, we can do so. He came in a suffocating power. Okay. Choking him with its raw power. Oh yeah, see, that takes it all the way down to there. How is this even possible? It was the stench. He didn't understand where it was coming from. Had he been on the source? Yes, of course he has. Escape is important. This. I think that's stupid, though I like the idea of a beastly aroma. The odor so thick you can taste it. I think this is a dumb question. I'm going to get rid of that because I actually like the idea of him whimpering and then better than the howl. If I want to expand that, the world reverberated like a dull echo. The world around him trembled and shimmered around it. So this actually uses the entire thing as the chunk it's writing into. Interesting. So the world reverberated like a dull echo in his own suffering, amplified by the throbbing of his skull. Everything vibrated in the rhythm of his agony, a terrible harmony that mocked his helplessness. His vision blurred with the intensity of it all, twisting reality into a nightmarish kaleidoscope of anguish. The whole world seemed to quake with him as though it couldn't withstand the force of his torment. Colors bled and ran together, dancing like phantoms at the edge of his sight. They wavered with every pulse of pain, threatening to swallow him whole. Every desperate heartbeat was a drum that pounded through his ears. It worked and skewed. It pulsed with malicious life. It shook like it was mocking him. It quivered like it was laughing. The very air seemed to vibrate, to ripple, to blur and smear and distort as it took on a grotesque life of its own. Bobby's own pain were waves, was waves. A wave that surged through everything and made the world dance with him. That's kind of, I don't know. I guess they're supposed to be dancing with the waves. It was like the universe itself was an ugly reflection of his misery. Just gonna chop that. The world trembled and shimmered around him. It came in a suffocating wave, overpowering his senses. So I got to 1,000 words from less than 10 words. Bobby transformed into a werewolf was where I started, and I'm now at 1,000 words with a finely tuned werewolf transformation. I think what you'll see is that you can do things that will give you control over how this works, and you can use this as part of your secondary stages, or even if you started with because you can do things like if you can think of things to add. So I'm becoming naked, and then his jaw. We want hair to come out. Okay, so we could do something on hair and fur and whiskers need to pop out of his body, embarrassing him. And so I can just misspell. Okay, grab that and tell it to expand. Hair pushed out of his skin like weeds in a deserted yard, unstoppable, untamable, and disgusting. The strands sprouted up like a creeping curse, coating his body in wild patches. He wanted to rip them out, but they appeared faster than he could even process. And then it goes his clothes shredded. So you see what it does. So it does the expansion of this in this large paragraph here, and then it takes the next paragraph and it repeats it. That is that is not a bug. That is the feature. It's using this paragraph as a backstop. It looks up, it reads above, everything was written above. It looks at your story Bible, it looks at your characters, it looks at all the stuff that's there. But the big thing is that it'll take this, it'll expand it, and then it will repeat this chunk here. And that's how you blow it up in the way that you want to expand your scenes. Uh, that I might put differently. Stick that up here. Let's start that with the whiskers and uh, make that bigger. With a sudden shocking cruelty, whiskers shot out of Bobby's cheeks, sprouting like weeds. It's too much. I want it to go slower. Okay, I want to go slower. So I'll say slow this down. Make it painful. Start slow. Expand. Something sharp and rebellious and foreign shot from his skin. The pain began slow and steady, but climbed mercilessly like a predator savoring the hunt. He felt it stabbing and tearing, puncturing his flesh with inevitability that made him cringe little by little, more than broke through. Then he felt himself sinking past pain, past suffering, into humiliation. The whiskers grew at an awkward angles, making him look like a freak of. So part of that works for me. Undeniable presence. And what I don't want is shot from his skin. Poked out. I don't like this predator thing. I don't like the pain. He felt it stabbing and puncturing his flesh. Little by little, more than broke through. That's okay. They clawed their way to freedom while his face screamed in red-hot protest. Each one felt like it gouged his nerves with cruel precision, leaving him raw and exposed. Anthropomorphizing the precision is kind of weird. Gouge his nerves is fine, I guess. But maybe this is what I wanted to. I don't care about inevitability and cringiness. But I do want to make that slower. Something sharp and rebellious and foreign poked out from his skin. It felt like it was deliberately tearing him apart. He was punctured with no relief in sight, a fierce stabbing sensation. Veins and nerves were exposed in raw, brutal protest. The rebellious point danced beneath his skin. The sharps. I think you should touch it. I don't want that. That's the problem, I think. He raised, touched it with his fingers. Stung. Expand that. Something sharp and stubborn and sickeningly rebellious poked out from beneath his skin. Foreign and hard, felt like it didn't belong on something alive. He wondered for a brief moment if he was too terrified to look, too revolted to even see. It's too much. Little by little more than broke through. That's this. He reached down and touched it with his shaking fingers. The sight made him queasy. Not too bad. Sit down. Think about what it feels like personally. Get rid of rebellious. That's part of the problem. Just get rid of foreign. Expand that. Because some of the stuff you just got to figure out what it is that's bothering you about it and get rid of it. And then maybe the expand will actually focus on the stuff you want it to come out of.
Hey, when you get a chance, they're asking to see what the credit cost has been so far.
Sure. And I've done it so many times, that's kind of what it's going to be. I don't have a lot of, so it's 1,000, 2,000, 2,000. So it looks like the credit cost for these kind of things I'm doing is anywhere from 2,500 to 2,000. Do we want to look at another credit cost thing? I can run other tests. Now I'm at 1,250 for this transformation chapter. You can see that you could do this with not safe for work stuff as well. Let's see what Awakening to the Echoes did. This was the Paul waking up. Hey, you're alive. Who the hell are you? Call me Marv, the old man said. Been calling you deadbeat, but suppose if you're awake, you might have a name. It's Paul, he said, though at the moment he felt more like dead meat than cared to admit. Marv shrugged, a movement that traveled up and down his wiry frame like a low wave. Paul it is, then. Welcome to my humble abode. The reality of the situation seeped into Paul's brain with all the urgency of molasses. I'm in a sewer, he said, as though saying it out loud might change the facts. Marv chuckled. Been watching too much TV if you think this is a sewer. This here's a lair. Paul rubbed his temples. The hangover was morphing into something uglier, like a creature born from the foul union of nausea and despair. He needed to find the exit before Marv convinced him to stay for dinner, which might be last week's leftovers and not in a metaphorical sense. You a bum? Paul asked, not bothering to hide the edge in his voice. Nah, Marv replied. I'm a fucking unicorn. Paul rolled his eyes, an action that brought about a minor explosion of pain in his skull. I was talking about me. I look like a bum to you. Everyone's got to be something, Marv said, apparently oblivious to the accusation in Paul's tone. But no, I don't think you're a bum. Too clean for now. A more suspicious man might have thought Marv was mocking him, but Paul didn't have the energy for suspicion, or much else for that matter. His head was a Jackson Pollock of memories and liquor. He struggled to his feet, hoping that the movement might shake something loose like a clue about what had landed him in the subterranean shithole. His memory coughed up a vague image of a bar, a shady backroom poker game, and an even shadier man in a cowboy hat who smiled too much for Paul's liking. The pieces of the puzzle were there, but the damn thing came without a box cover. You don't remember a damn thing, do you? Marv asked, squinting at Paul with that penetrating gaze of someone who didn't miss much. Yeah, well, Paul replied, his irritation barely covering his unease. Must not have been important. The smile that broke out now on Marv's face was as wide enough to house a family of birds. You say that now. Just wait. There was an awkward pause, the kind that fills a room when two people both know one of them is lying. What's that supposed to mean? Paul asked, immediately regretting that he'd taken the bait. Marv rose and started walking away, the click of his worn boots echoing down the pipe. Follow me, I'll show you. occurred to Paul that he didn't have a lot of options. Following Marv seemed marginally better than sitting around and waiting to grow a beard of his own. With the resignation of a man whose expectations couldn't sink much lower, he followed. As they walked, Marv prattled on, offering that he had no doubt considered useful information, but which sounded to Paul like the ravings of a man who thought tinfoil hats were an excellent fashion statement. Okay, I read too much, but I like this stuff. This is the kind of stuff I love seeing come out. And then what can I do with that? Does it need any expansion? No, not yet. I don't even know what's going on, and that's what's fun for me about this kind of a way and approach to the writing, is that I don't know what's going to happen next, but maybe I'd like to know what's going to happen to next. Maybe I read the whole thing. I thought, ooh, this is great. It has good ending for this first chapter. What can I do? How can I check this? We did that full story of Alice, didn't like it. But I'm gonna run I'm gonna run the Opus one. I like the Opus one. There's a Brainstorm outliner. I made one for DeepSeek V1, R1. I made one for Opus Sonnet 3.7, 3.5.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
two things. One is we're 15 minutes away from, I don't know if they're going to need this link
Yeah.
for the next thing. That's
Yes.
one. And the other is just reminding you you're still recording in case you don't want to record for some of this.
Good. I'm going to keep recording because in case people had to drop off and they want to see the rest. And we are going to end at that 15-minute mark. So definitely keep me on track for that. And thank you.
We are at the 15-minute mark.
Cool. My computer might give up the ghost by the time we get to it. Come on. So what I'm looking for is something called Brainstorm Outline. Brainstorm Outline will look at what I've written so far, and it will suggest an outline. How could this go for the rest of the book? Right now, my computer has given up the ghost. Can we do it this guy instead? Another recent outline that people have been creating is the we have better beats, but there's also there's one called spicy beat scene, which this isn't spicy scene, so it's not going to go too spicy. It's just going to take the scenes that are here and it's going to add more detail to them. So it creates what it's calling a scene outline, and scene one has a lot more emotional beats, and it ends with the transition cut to scene two. Scene two is introduced. So you could use these chunks and replace them into the scenes that are here. In case you're feeling like you're not happy with the way the scenes get created. These are pretty good though. They do a pretty good job of giving people the information, giving the AI writer enough information. They're also guiding in the way that you read them. So you read them, if they're wrong, fix them, just change them. You can go in there and edit this stuff. You're not beholden to the AI. You could just write it yourself. You know how you want it to write? Just write it yourself. You don't have to let the AI write it for you. But if you use it and you read it and you say, oh, that's terrible, just chop it, put something else in. It gives you a good idea about the amount of action that should happen within each one of these pieces. Something like this scene creator, which looks at these scenes and then sort of blows them up and creates structural information and transitions between the scenes, and emotional beats. it may or may not be helpful. We haven't really done a lot of testing. I haven't done a lot. I just made it last night, so it's something fun to play with. So say I like this thing, and I want to do my expand outline. Sorry, outline brainstorm outline. Brainstorm outline doesn't have a space between it. If you look for brainstorm space outline, you'll never find it. So you gotta look for brainstorm outline, all one word. And it's up at the top somewhere. It has a little present, like opening a present. You can add extra instructions. So if you had some idea about what you wanted it to do, you could add it here. If you have an outline and you have a linked chapter and it's hooked into this, it will take that into account and it will sort of branch it off from the outline that you had there. Here's the twist, because that's sort of what this is about, is coming up with different ideas. But for me, when I've created something that I kind of like, but I don't know how does this become a book, I can use this brainstorm outline and it tells me what chapter 2 could be, chapter 3, strange figures from the shadows. They're attacked by the same figures. Lila takes Paul to meet her contacts in the city's magical world. We go to the underworld. There's a betrayal. There's a confrontation and a choice, a sacrifice, an aftermath is chapter 9, a new threat in chapter 10. And it says at the bottom, it sort of describes what's going on. The city itself plays a crucial role, and it talks about the outline. So there's like, you want to see what that costs? So Brainstorm was not cheap. This is Opus, 15,000. But I like what Opus can do with this stuff. 3.7 is pretty good and cheaper. And DeepSeek R1 is also pretty good, but I still like the Opus one. So 15,000 credits for that. The spicy plugins cost about 1,000 credits to do whatever it's doing. But you can take something like this and you can copy that out, and then you can go down to outline and you can import this outline and just paste those words in here. And it'll ignore the stuff at the bottom, I think, or it'll give it its own chapter and you just want to delete those chapters. But it's actually pretty good to go from one of these brainstorm outlines into pasting into a brainstorm, into an outline. And you see that it starts to spell out what should happen. And these actually kind of look like scenes or chunks of scene. So these could translate directly into scenes, or you could convert them as into scenes. Another thing I like doing is once I've got an outline like that, sorry guys, once I've got an outline like this, then I might go and run the Troperator plugin, Troperator, which I also made. And the Troperator plugin looks at these chapters and it creates like a style guide for each chapter. And then you can use this as a style, like these individual style guides. You could use that as extra instructions for the scenes that you're running, or you could refer to it as a style guide, which is sometimes easier because you can just copy out the whole thing.
John, you're almost at the 5-minute mark.
Okay. Is there any other questions that people have while I drop this card in here? So I made a style guidelines card that just is a style guide. And I just paste my Troperator information in there. And then if I was going to write more using the drafter, I would say, here is the style guidelines. See, I named my style guidelines SG. You give it a name so you know how to call it. And as long as you call it, then it will find it. And then when you hit generate the second time, when you hit go, it will pull that information in. And these things are smart enough to be able to say, okay, we're in chapter 2, so we're going to deal with chapter 2's style guide.
I need the Zoom.
Okay, I will get out. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming and being my co-host here. Julie says it's how they mostly work, like to write their own, but it needs ideas. I use Expander Write for ideas. That's great. I like playing with the different tools that they give us. And it's fun to see how much it is. And 637 was for what? Trope Writer, or just for the creating the, yeah, Trope Writer. Less than 1,000 for Trope Writer. 15,000 to brainstorm that outline, less than that for Trope Writer information. So I might try to figure out how to sort of combine these two and bring that cost down. But I like the stuff I get out of that. I will cut myself off now. Thank you all for coming. Please play around with Muse. Let's share and be part of the Discord. Come to the Discord, ask questions in the Discord. Does anyone who's watching, because I think we still might have some people on, is anyone having a hard time getting access to Discord? Cool. I will stop the recording. Stop my share. And I will say goodbye to all of you. Thank you.